Guys, all set? Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. So now for real, this is Metal Slug Advance. And if you haven't seen one of the games in the series, it is very heavy on action, a little bit of platforming, and a really heavy emphasis on fun and gameplay over realism. So if you need to see where you're going to have big glowing bullets, you're going to have all kinds of nice features in here. But most of all, it's going to feel like when things go wrong, it's mostly your fault. There is some RNG in the game, and I'll talk about a lot of the mechanics in here. From a speedrunning perspective, you'll see, first of all, that I'm jumping all over the place. Jumping is pretty common in Metal Slug games. It moves you forward a little bit, just a couple pixels every time I jump. But over the course of a level, that's going to add up to a couple of seconds. And that adds a lot of danger to the run because you have a lot less control when you're in the air. You're also more liable to put yourself into harm's way. This screen's called the climb. It's one of the more tricky early game parts of the speedrun. And that's because of the way the game handles enemy spawns. Basically, there are positions that when they first scroll onto your camera view, it'll decide whether or not to put an enemy there. But as a lag reduction measure, and lag was kind of a big thing for early Metal Slug games. Metal Slug 2 in particular had a ton of slowdown. They actually redid the game and re-released it as Metal Slug X, which fixed a lot of the problems. And I think they were nervous about something like that happening again for the relatively low-powered Game Boy Advance. So what they did was, if it's starting to lag, what'll happen is it'll start disabling spawn points. And that means I can get a lot of randomness just from enemy patterns changing based on when I kill things, what activity is going on the screen. Now we're going to get to the first boss here. Metal Slug bosses have a tradition of having a ton of hit points. So what I need to do for the speedrun is figure out effective ways to kill them quickly. This guy is trolling me by jumping around like an idiot. He likes to do that quite a bit. He also has an attack where he uses his main cannon shot. I want that to happen because it'll freeze him in place while he fires 3 times. But if he jumps around, it's more like I need to lock onto him and kind of follow around the action. Now you guys donated for Tira. There's 2 character choices in this game, Walter and Tira. They're purely cosmetic, so that it's kind of just art style between the 2 of them. And Metal Slug players might be wondering, where are all my classic guys? This game, plot-wise, is set a little bit in the future. So Walter and Tira are new recruits to the PF squad. But under the covers, they really is the same crew as always. So Walter is Marco, with a different haircut, a little bit different coloration. And Tira is Nadia from Metal Slug 4 with her ponytail chopped off. I don't know why they chose Nadia. Ari and Theo have been the more popular females in the series, but since it is art, it's kind of like the style choice. And I think they came out with some decent characters here. So DK, as a Metal Slug player, are you getting the sense this is the same game that you're used to?
Yeah, definitely very similar. A lot of the same mechanics. Like when you were fighting the boss, I was waiting for you to do the slug crash, which is where you sacrifice the vehicle, and it does a lot of damage as opposed to just the regular attacks. Metal Slug as a whole, I always say, probably has more personality than just about any other game series, and that definitely still comes through. So, how would you say this stacks up compared to the other games in the series?
I put it up there with Metal Slug X and Metal Slug 3 as my favorites. I think it's pretty accessible to new players. It's got a lot of elements that are not traditionally seen in a Metal Slug game. I'll talk about those a little bit. Probably first of all, you notice that there's a life bar. It's kind of replaced the arcade style where you've got credit feeding and just kind of unlimited amounts of play as long as you've got enough money, with a system where you have a little bit more interesting things happening for the home console version. And that's because they were trying to do from the ground up a game that was going to be interesting for somebody that was wanting to get some replay value out of it. So this was kind of an unplanned battle. I'm supposed to have the Slug coming in here to this boss, so this is going to take quite a bit longer than I want it. Actually, that's really bad. So one of the things that you'll see here for Metal Slug is if you die, then you're actually going to restart at the last checkpoint. In this case, it's going to be the boss battle. In traditional Metal Slug games, what would happen is you get there exactly where you left off, but in this case, I have to redo the boss fight entirely. So it's kind of a penalizing feature to make you get good at the game. But it's also useful for interfacing with the Metroidvania-style elements. So one of the things they did for replayability was make it so that there is a card collecting aspect. And the card collection has a couple of different things that you can get out of it. There are achievement cards for beating the bosses under certain time limits, beating parts of the mission. I'm going to collect a laser here. Unlike the other Metal Slug games, it's actually deterministic what weapons that you get in the bosses, which is one of the nice things where you're saving a little bit in RNG. Otherwise, these guys are RNG nightmares. The first phase of this guy has a little bit more predictability, but the second phase, he likes to move around a lot like an idiot, so it's kind of hard to lock onto him. But other aspects of the cards, there are secret items that you need to get just for decorative purposes. And there's also power-ups. So you might have seen that when I was grabbing weapons, I actually have half as much ammo as I would in a normal Metal Slug game. So when I got the heavy machine gun, I only had 100 shots instead of 200. So while you have power-ups that increase your ammunition, really it's getting you back to parity with the other Metal Slug games.
Is that the Alan replacement?
That is Alan O'Neill Jr. So again, this is set a little bit in the future from the other Metal Slug games. Alan O'Neill is one of the most fun battles in it. He's kind of a recurring villain in the series. I think he's more interesting than the end boss or most of the other guys in there. And kind of the backstory of Alan O'Neill is, even though he keeps dying, he's immortal because he always wants to go home and go back to his son. Well, that's his son in this game. And he happens to fight exactly like his father does. Unfortunately, I'm not going to do the Alan O'Neill fight. It's in an optional area of the final mission. And since this is an any % run, I'm not going to be able to go all the way through there. I guess I should explain what the difference is between any % and 100% here. So in a 100% run, it's basically collecting all the cards. It's 100 cards that you go through. So it's a really easy definition of what 100% means. And any % is finishing the game as fast as possible. I'm only going to collect 2 cards throughout the run that are optional, one of which I got at the very beginning of the game, the shotgun clip to increase my shotgun ammo. I'll need that in mission 4. And then there's also the heavy machine gun clip, which I got just now. And I'll use that against the final boss. So this is probably a good time to plug the charity and tell us a little bit about what we're doing here.
Okay, thank you. We have a $25 donation from David F12, donating again for one of my favorite series of all time. Okay, hype! Here's hoping all of us together can help prevent cancer and give us all a very rosy outlook on life. We also have a $20 donation from Tim Z. I lost my grandma to pancreatic cancer when I was 12. Thanks for being awesome. After that Broforce run, I think it's pretty important to liberate the animals. $25 donation from Steve. Worth it to stay up till 4 a.m. for this run. One of my favorite games of all time. Good luck and keep going.
So you notice what? Go ahead.
No, sorry. A $20 donation from the Bacon from Hell. Stanford TV brought me here. I hope I win the PS4. I love you all.
So one of the things I was doing there with the purple paratroopers is actually influencing how they spawn based on the lag management. There's supposed to be 9 in each of the waves, but the more you kill simultaneously, the more that's going on at the screen at the same time. And as I said, that'll cause enemies to despawn. So you can get between 4 and 9 depending on how quickly you deal with the first wave in there. Now this guy is based on a boss from Metal Slug 1. His gimmick is that he's below you, which is always a weak spot in Metal Slug games. It's very difficult to shoot down. But if you bring the Slug into the mission, you can really trash the boss. And he's one of the few ones that doesn't have randomness in how he moves around. He's random in how he attacks, but his movement pattern is fixed.
I noticed they also kind of give you the world map on this one. Does that have any particular function, or is that more just...
That's part of the replay aspect. So in order to complete the game fully for the 100%, you actually have to do some of the missions many times over. And in fact, there is like unlocks where you get parts of the game that are locked off the first time that you go through the missions. You find secret items, and those let you open up later parts of the game. So this is where the game starts getting really difficult. Not only is it ramping up how hard it is, but I've been skipping all those cards for the purposes of the speedrun. So it's kind of assuming that I've got the power-ups, which is going to make it a lot trickier to get through here. And what I'm going to rely for most of the rest of the run is more on running and dodging things than on actually killing. Take the damage boost up to the 3rd floor, which gives me a little bit of a jump off here. Notice there's a little bit of a difference between what you might think are the hitboxes of the game and where it's actually looking at things. I'll take advantage of that quite a bit and kind of show it off throughout this level. But mostly what I'm trying to do is baby this shotgun that I got at the very beginning all the way through to the boss. It's the most effective weapon. There is a flame shot, but it's about 15 seconds out of the way.
Is flame as OP in this one as the rest of the series?
Unfortunately, the flame clip increase is at the very end of Mission 5. So it would be if you had enough ammunition, but you don't. This is one of the more trolling aspects of the game. I kind of mentioned how enemy spawns have deactivation if there are no enemies. Like, there's supposed to be a tank there, but he decided not to show up today. The way they code at mobile objects, these platforms I'm riding on, those are also spawned in the game. So if there's lag at the wrong time, the floor will disappear, and I'll have a very bad day. So I needed 20 shotgun shots and 20 grenades for the quick kill on the boss, but I also need luck to get him to do a certain attack. And unfortunately, you can't influence that, but we'll see if it goes well or not. He basically can drop a missile on my head, or he can decide to swoop, and the swoop will take at least 6 seconds. This is the swoop. And we'll finish him off because I dropped a couple grenades on the ground. But if you have 20 and 20, you can kill him with exactly the ammunition that you got there. And I have to mash because there is actually the mission selection between each of these screens in here. Now the final mission. The final mission starts off with a couple branching paths. The first branching path is whether or not you survive the aerial combat section. I blow myself up intentionally to take me to this backup area. And it kind of looks like an auto-scroller, but every time I get shot, notice the screen scrolls slightly faster. So the technique down here is actually pretty counterintuitive. You want to get shot as much as possible. You'd think that would be easy for a game like this, but it's tricky to manipulate the enemies to shoot you in a consistent way. So I need to take exactly 4 going down there to get through as quick, the fastest way. Again, it doesn't look like you could sneak through there, but I tricked the missile to fire the wrong direction, and he's too slow to catch up. This next screen, this is probably not what you want to do at home. And I skipped that super grenade there, which is a tricky jump because these tanks right here have a shield. Normally you have to blast the shield before you can do damage to them, but the shotgun's piercing attack goes right through, so I can kill them in 1 hit.
I was going to say, it was nice to see super grenade again, but never mind.
I'll get you some super grenades. This is the final mission here, with a ton of branching paths through here. Obviously I'm going to take the shortest one through, but there is all kinds of collectibles in here. There's the optional Alan O'Neill fight. And some of the paths give you more weapons to use against the final boss. What a troll from the left-hand side there. So I'll go through and kind of have the minimum, which is just coming through with your pistol and 10 grenades. So I'll have to be a little bit more careful about how I deal with them. For these 2 rooms, what I actually do is park myself on top of the exit trigger before it spawns. And when it activates, it sucks me out immediately. It saves a couple of frames. There's another trick with those tanks. You can actually poke your gun through their hitbox. It doesn't hurt you if you get just at the right position, so I can actually shoot the back of him without taking damage. It's my safety fish. And this guy is an RNG nightmare. First of all, depending on where the platforms spawn and where I spawn in the screen, I'll get between 3 and 5 jumps. And then there's these random robots. I'm hoping that they go at my crouching height because you fire the gun fastest when crouching. Wow, they are really trolling me today. But they can be unhittable, like you saw in the first one. or they could be at like a head height, which is kind of an intermediate comfortable one. Then it does this plasma ball attack. These plasma balls are completely random, so it's all improv doing this section, and it's no safe spots on the screen where you can still hit the boss. So that glowing red orb is the only thing that takes damage on there. So if you want to dodge and you go around, then you'll be doing less DPS, which is never good for a speedrun. The transition from the top to bottom, that is RNG as well for how long it takes. These plasma lasers are RNG as well. It'll give you some pretty interesting patterns sometimes. Again, I want to stay in the middle as much as possible. I'll even take hits sometimes if it lets me avoid having to run around. The time to drop these platforms down is random. That was actually a pretty good one. I had a practice attempt earlier where it took 25 seconds to drop those down. And then it repeats the cycle. And it's important that I don't put the boss into critical mode before he does the plasma balls again. He's got a much nastier phase once he goes into critical mode. The robots go into insanity mode, where they move much faster, and he can do 3 robots instead of 2. There's also what I call the blue ring of death attack. We'll see if it comes down and does the blue ring of death here at the bottom. I might be able to take him out before then. So get ready on time. It won't be when the boss dies, but I'll tell you exactly when it is. And that was the final boss of Metal Slug Advance. So time is going to be in 3, 2, 1, time. Not bad for getting trolled by Mission 2. The world record is 14:02. Not only does that require really good execution, but also all those RNG elements I talked about. Like you have to get the quick kill on Mission 4, you have to get perfect RNG on Mission 5. Just like there's about a minute of difference from pure RNG on the bosses alone.
Yeah, a perfect Metal Slug run is quite a sight.
And I do want to give a shout out to Mike Uyama. Mike is the main organizer of the GDQ events, and he's also a really big Metal Slug player. I'd hoped to have him on the couch today, but he's unable to join us. His runs were really what got me into speedrunning Metal Slug games in the first place. He had a lot of very good times early on before people were really seriously doing this. Like I was doing 1-credit clears of like Metal Slug X and Metal Slug 1, but you do that like with baby strats. You crawl for it. You make sure that you're going through as safe as possible. And Mike was the first person I saw that just like tore through the level. DK, I don't know how you got started on Metal Slug games.
A little bit the same, because always the running gun stuff, with the Contra and everything like that. So watching Mike's Metal Slug reruns was definitely inspirational. Just like you said, just caution to the wind and just go for it.
So thank you, Mike, and I hope you're able to join us for a future Metal Slug. I'm sure we'll have more in the marathon. And with that, thanks for watching, everyone.